Welcome back. You're still watching The Money Show on ET Now. And now, third and final segment, we will be discussing about how you can save a few lakh worth of rupees on a house that could cost you 1 crore. We're talking about how you can buy repossessed property and what essentially does it mean. Well, to start with, what is a repossessed property or a repossessed house? It's a home which essentially has been seized by a bank after the previous owner has defaulted on a loan or any kind of a financial agreement, and once the lender has taken ownership of the land, they will seek to sell it quickly to recover that money. So it could be in a form of an auction. You see and hear about it all the time in the news as well. Lender defaulting, then the bank seizing their property and then auctioning it later in order to recover that money which they had lent to that particular borrower. Okay, let's move right on, and let's also touch base with the expert who is joining us right now on the show to talk about repossessed property and how you can maximize your savings on it. Mr. Raj Khosla is joining us from My Money Mantra. Thank you so much, Mr. Khosla, for taking time out for us. Just want to start with your view. Do you think buyers should look at buying repossessed properties? And what advantage does it have over buying a regular property?
It's only 5% of secured loan which go bad and therefore eventually end up on the market. It's a very low percentage, and so that's a low universe we start with. But the biggest advantage of going in for a stressed property purchase is, I would imagine, anything between say 20 to 40% discount on the property, and seeing that property prices are depressed as it is. If there's a further say 30% discount, one would end up with a bargain of a lifetime. So that's the biggest advantage of that.
Okay, all right. Also, if you can give us a sense of, what sort of discount from the current market or current value can one expect when they're buying a repossessed property?
Well, no, the 5% figure was really to say that out of every 100 secured loans, only 5% go bad. So that wasn't really a discount figure. So discount figure is really what you should keep, rule of thumb in your mind, is a minimum of 30%, because it does involve a lot of work to execute a transaction like this, and therefore one is entitled to, if I can use that word, entitled to at least a 30% advantage on market value.
Okay, so in that case, can you help us understand how can one extract the best value? Is there something in particular one should look out for when looking up for auction of such properties by bank or any other financial institutions?
Well, for the sake of simplicity, let me take an example of a 1 crore property, which would typically be a 2-bedroom house. I mean, the same principles apply to maybe warehouses and farmland as well. But to explain the concept, maybe I go with a 1 crore residential unit which has been repossessed. So, the first thing that you have to do is to figure out your own finances. Whenever you're going in for an auction, you need to have arranged the money beforehand in terms of an in-principle approval from the bank, of your own bank, depending on your own credit rating, whatever money you have, what loan you can get. So you have a figure in mind that you can go through with the purchase of a particular price. Let us say you can buy a property worth 1 crore, you have funds for that. That's the first thing to do. Second is, to figure out the title of the property. You must always get hold of a good lawyer, because remember, although the bank is the one who's auctioning the property, primarily because under the SURFACE Act, they are able to repossess and sell a property, a property on which the owner has repeatedly defaulted on his EMIs. So the owner still is the owner of the property and not the bank. So you must be clear that the owner in the first instance had a clear title to the property. So you need to investigate that. Second is, go to the central registry. And this is the most important item. Always figure out if this particular property had any other loan, because whereas the bank auctioning the property is doing so to recover its own dues, the owner of the property may have, without telling the bank, mortgaged the same property to some other institution. So that's very important clearance to have, and people normally forget that one. After that, you must get an appraiser, because you see, whenever a person begins to default on a loan, chances are that he tends to neglect the upkeep, the repairs, and so on and so forth. And he knows in his mind that he's going to at some point in time lose the property, so he doesn't sort of effect any maintenance of any type. It is most important to get the property appraised, as in the kind of condition it is, what is the further after having purchased it, how much more money will be required for you to live in that. You should know that, so it's a good thing to get an appraiser.
All right, Mr. Khosla, thank you for highlighting all the various kinds of precautions and cautions that cautious steps that one needs to take before investing in a repossessed property. But what happens if there is more than two parties involved? What should one do in that case?
Always nice, because it will be a tripartite agreement. Whenever you go through with this kind of a transaction, which means the owner, the bank, and yourself, try and get the owner as a confirming party to this entire agreement, because you don't want any niggling property, some sort of dispute and legal dispute which can send the transaction away for 20 years. That's not something you don't want to buy a problem. You want to buy a house. So that is something most important, whereby you must get an indemnity certificate from the bank, which will protect you from any legal charges, any legal action that the owner may take as an afterthought. In fact, you should also try and put in a penalty clause, which is that in case the owner backs off last minute saying that he had arranged the funds from somewhere and now he can repay his loan, he should not be allowed to back out of the transaction, because you've actually invested a lot of time, energy, money into all of this. So there should be a penalty clause in all of that. And then in case there's a society involved, make sure that you get a no objection from the society. It's most important, because who knows what litigation the owner may have had with the society, how the society is preventing him from enjoying the property. That no objection is most important for your own safety. And then if it's more than 50 lakhs, which frequently, since we are talking about 1 crore, the transaction is going to be more than 50 lakhs, in which case TDS is required. 1% TDS must be deducted and deposited against the permanent account number of the owner of the property or the seller. So these are some of the things that you need to keep in mind. But I can tell you, although it may sound like it's a lot of work and it is tedious, but a lot of people have gained tremendously from this. Lastly, I'd say only one thing is that whenever you get into an auction, read the auction document very carefully with the fine print, because you're up against, could be, if I can use the word loosely, some sharks who might be in the auction hall. You must you make friends with your lawyer, who helps you read through the documents, has your rights and your whatever procedures you're supposed to follow. You must be very careful of that. And you see, sometimes it happens that you actually like the property a lot. It's actually a dream home. It's a 2-bedroom property in your favorite locality. But before you get into the auction process, remember that you must have an upper limit, because don't let your emotions get the better of you and you start bidding over and above what you should have, as a calculated bid put in place. Always be in control of your own calculations all the way through the bidding process. Most important. I can tell you, if you do all of this, you stand to gain a lot. It can, you can realize, instead of a 1-bedroom flat, with the same amount of money, you may end up with a 2-bedroom flat. That's really good.
Okay, thanks much for flagging it off. But what one typically notices is that many of these auction properties on auctions are cornered off by high net worth investors because of their links with banking agents, etc. So, can you help us understand, do regular investors stand a chance at all?
Yes, indeed they do, because that's why we just discussed the steps they must follow. I think they do stand a chance. They should look upon it very, very carefully and take this on as a full-time job. It may be they don't get it first time, maybe not be second time, but then that's the way you learn. And over a period of, I would say, anything between 6 months to 12 months, you could easily land a good deal which you could be most proud of and be very happy with. Yeah. I don't think it's exclusive.
All right, Mr. Khosla, just one very quick question before we let you go. What care should one take to ensure that he or she doesn't get caught up in any legal tangles after buying such repossessed properties, and especially if there are cases that the property is also mortgaged off to other lenders?
Well, like I said, your legal tangles, they could be frivolous ones, because if you followed the checklist that I just mentioned, I think you've covered all bases. But if someone wants to get smart and wants to abuse the legal system, they can come up with some small, one excuse or the other and start a legal case and then prolong the inevitable. I would say that the indemnity from the bank is the most important in these circumstances. That whenever there's any legal case or something like that, or any extra expense, the bank has to indemnify you, for any such actions by the owner. Because typically it's the owner who starts a frivolous litigation in a bid to stall the inevitable, to somehow say that maybe I can live over here for another year, or does it matter, I'll save rent, and he does a cost benefit analysis and starts a mess. But try and cover for your rights and make the bank a party to that cover, and also ensure that the seller becomes a confirming party to the transaction, and so therefore you've covered all bases.
All right, Mr. Khosla, that was an exhaustive explanation of all the things and concerns surrounding purchase of repossessed property. Thank you so much once again for joining us on the Money Show and helping our viewers understand what are the risks that lie there, what are the preventions that they can take to abate those risks. With that, we're out of time in this edition of the Money Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's a wrap for now.